So hello everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I go about creating UVs for this car. This is actually Spencer Bowen's car and it was so nice and clean that I want to use this for creating this tutorial. So thank you, Spencer. We're going to start with opening up the UV editor. So make sure you're in the modeling menu, because if you're not going to see this UV option here, okay? Then you go to UV and click on UV editor. It's going to open up for you the UV editor and also the UV toolkit. So if you're working on one monitor, you can just snap them somewhere that you can have access to that. Oops, actually, yeah, let's just do this again. Here we go. And you can also snap this UV editor to the side of this view that you have like this. But if you're working on two monitors, you can, obviously push them to the other monitor. So to start off, I'm just gonna, because this object has already colors on it, it's not, I'm gonna just apply one gray color to everything so it's easier for you to see. So I'm just gonna select everything and then assign a new material to it, Lambert. And just for the sake of being clean and not having too much clutter in this scene, I'm just going to delete the history on this object. Also, I'm going to just select these other objects that I'm not going to work with for now and put them in a display layer so I can hide them, because I don't need them right for now. So I'm just going to create a new display layer for this and just make them hidden. So now I'm good. I have the basic shape that I want to start UV. So if I click on this, I can see that it already has some UVs, but to check if it's the right kind of UV, I'm gonna turn on this checker map here. And as soon as I click this, you see that this checker texture is not showing up correctly, right? It's all skewed. It is supposed to be squares and black and white squares that are the same size. It is not like that. So first we want to create a kind of UV for everything, and then we can go in and cut and make cuts and pieces to that. So first thing, I'm gonna go to faces, select everything, and if I go to my UV toolkit, in the create section I have this camera based UV. So now that I did this camera based UV projection, you can see that I have everything here. But if I unfold this now, it's not gonna do me any good because I didn't cut the right shape edges, right? I haven't cut anything yet. So I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna start by actually separating the top and bottom part of this body of the car. So I'm just gonna cut that. So I'm gonna go in and select the edges that are around. So double clicking in here is not gonna get me anywhere because although it's an edge loop, it has this conjunction of like 4 edges going in, so Maya doesn't understand that it is an edge loop. So I'm just gonna go in, select it myself, holding down shift. I'm selecting the edges, and now that I have the edges selected, so we talked about this in the class. So I used this tool, cut and sew tool, in the class, and I rather use the old-fashioned tool here because that's easier for me, but it's your choice. You can do this with the cut and sew tool as well. So I'm gonna just go into the cut and sew section of UV tool and click on cut. Okay, so it doesn't show me anything here, but I know that I cut this edges, right? So if I go to shell mode by clicking on this UV shell icon here and click on this shell, move it away, I can see that now I have 2 shells of UVs. So I'm gonna just push this one, up. I'm gonna work with this part for now. And that's a good way of thinking about your object. Like if it has complicated parts, try to think of it as a bunch of faces and work them one one, you know, a couple of faces at a time. Okay, so now you know, looking at this box, I think if I cut these edges that are here, like this edge and this, and then this edge and this edge, and again this and this, I think I can open up this shape, right? I have already cut the top part, so this side is, you know, this part is open. So as I select this edges, I think it would give me a good start for unwrapping it, and actually I think it's going to do the job properly. So selecting these edges, you know, instead of using it in here, you can also do shift right click, and there's cut tool here. I'm going to say cut, and then I'm going to right click, go to UV shell, select this shell, and I'm going to go to UV toolkit, unfold, and click on unfold. And you can see that cutting these edges, I was able to unfold this shape, right? So one part is done, yay. And how do I know that it is a correct UV? I'm going to just turn on this checker box and look around this shape that is in the bottom. I can see that everything looks proportional and nice and nothing is skewed, right? So let's create the rest of the UVs. So I'm going to now move to the top part. I'm going to go in and cut this first window and whatever faces that are all around it. So I'm going to go to edges and select these 4 edges. I'm going to create, I'm going to separate this part of the UVs. So here I'm going to just do cut, go to UV shells to grab and separate this part. Okay. So if I say unfold now, let's see how Maya does it. Let's just actually check that. So it's not all right, especially in here, because you can see that it is all distorted, right? So to lay it flat, we need to cut some edges to guide Maya how to lay this shape flat, right? So I'm gonna select these 4 edges. Actually, not 4 edges, but 4 sides that have these edges here. I'm gonna select them all, and I'm gonna cut them so that Maya can separate everything and lay it flat without distortion. So here I'm gonna say cut. Now I go to shell, select this shell and say unfold. And you can see that this time it's absolutely perfect. I can see that, you know, everything is a square because when we cut it like this, then Maya knows how to lay it flat, right? So you're gonna basically do the same thing for all these other faces, right? I'm gonna do one more of this, and then I'm gonna pause the video and do the rest because yeah, I don't want this to get so long. So here I have the rest of the shells, the UV shell here. I'm gonna just go in again, cut the edges. I'm not gonna cut this edge because it's already cut, right? If you look at into UV editor section, you can see that nothing is attached to it. So it's already cut. I don't have to cut it twice, right? It doesn't mean anything if I say cut this edge in the shell. You see that I don't cut edges in the XYZ space, right? I do it in the UV editor. So it doesn't mean that I'm actually making any changes into my 3D object. I'm just cutting the UV shell, okay? So now here I'm gonna say right click, shift right click, cut, and now I get this another shell. So I'm gonna just test it again. I'm gonna hit unfold and use it with the checker thing. I see distortion, so this is not a good unfold, right? So I'm just gonna push it aside and do the same thing with this shape as well. I'm gonna just cut these edges so that it can be laid flat. So now that I selected the edges, I can go into the UV editor side of things, say right click, cut, go to shell and say unfold. Now I have this unfold, and if I look at the UVs, I can see that they're correct. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video here, and I'm gonna do the same for all the rest of the windows. So I cut around the edges of all these for all the rest of the windows, and I hit unfold. They're just stacked on top of each other. That's, you know, that's fine for now. And I'm left with this top part, which is just now two faces. And I don't need to make any cuts to unfold this part because it's already like a rectangle or something. It doesn't have any bend on it. So I'm just gonna say unfold, and this is unfold as well. So now that I have every parts and beats of this object, it's ready. You know, every UV part is ready. So the most important thing now is to contain them in one unit of UV space. So everything should be in this one UV square that you see in the UV editor. Okay, so you can do it by going in and scale them and try to match them, but you can also do it the most efficient way and start by the UV layout that Maya gives you. So to use the UV layout thing in Maya, I'm just gonna go to UV shell mode, select every shell, and then going down to arrange and layout section here. If you click on layout, it's just gonna stack everything in this one square. Yeah, it kind of pushes some stuff right at the edge. That's why you get this other square as well. But if you just, you know, grab this object, hit W, just move it, now it looks correct. But never settle with one thing that Maya is giving you, because yeah, it's gonna be hard to put textures if it's like this. For example, I want to rotate this, right? And hit W. Okay. Oh, what's happening here? Okay, so I jump back into the smooth preview mode. That's why it looks all crazy here. So let's just hit 1 so I get to the hard surface version of my model, not the smooth one. So now I can just go into shells, because now I have them all here. I can just scale them a little bit so that they're nice and clean, and just stack them like this. Rotate this one like this. That seems about right. Okay, just double check to see everything is contained in one unit of the UV space. They're just in one square. Okay, just double checking everything here. Everything looks correct. And now I can just export these UVs and use them as a guide to put textures on this object, right? So if I go to UV shell, select everything. Actually, I think the object mode works well in this case. So you go to object mode, you select the object, all the shells are there. Then you go to this UV snapshot, click on it. It's going to be in by default, it's going to open up in the images folder of the project that you have already set. That's fine. I'm just going to rename it to UV out 2, and then I'd rather have the color of the UV to be black instead of white. And I'm gonna set the image format to PNG instead of what it is by default, which is Maya IFF. I'm gonna set it to be PNG because PNG supports transparency, and that's gonna be easier to work in Photoshop. And just say apply and close, and then I have a snapshot of this map, and I can bring it to Photoshop and work with it. And I'm gonna just show how to do it in the next video.